While we may not see them often, dogs are indeed one of the many types of everyday creatures found in Middle-earth. In the Third Age, we find dogs owned by hobbits, like Farmer Maggot's 3 dogs, Grip, Fang, and Wolf. But in the First Age, we would find a dog who stands alone as the greatest of his species ever to grace the pages of Tolkien. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover Huan, the Hound of Valinor. While Huan's story comes mostly in the lands of Beleriand, his origin is in the Blessed Realm. Huan originally belongs to Orome, the huntsman of the Valar. Orome would then give Huan to Feanor's son, Celegorm, and while we don't know for certain when this great dog is born, we are told that in Valinor, he had followed the horn of his master before evil came. This could be interpreted as Huan predating Morgoth's capture by the Valar in the Year of the Trees 1099. Should this have been the case, Huan would have been over 3,700 years old by the time Morgoth and Ungoliant destroy the 2 trees and steal the Silmarils. And it is this very event that leads Celegorm and his brothers to swear the dreadful Oath of Feanor, to pursue any who should withhold a Silmaril from them. With others among the Noldor, they would sail to Middle-earth, and Huan would accompany his master. As he follows Celegorm, he too comes under the doom of woe set upon the Noldor, and it was decreed that he should meet death, but not until he encountered the mightiest wolf that would ever walk the world. Another prophecy would also be made of Huan, that before his death he would speak exactly 3 times. We know not whether Huan had a role in the kinslaying at Alqualande, or his reaction to it, for he would truly enter the story of Middle-earth in a prominent way in the tale of Beren and Luthien. While his actions during this more than 450-year gap are not explicitly stated, we can logically conclude that he would accompany Celegorm when his master settles in the lands of Himlad. In 455 of the First Age, Morgoth would break the siege the elves had long held on his fortress of Angband. In the aftermath of this battle of sudden flame, Celegorm and his brother Curufin would suffer a further loss at the pass of Aglon, between Dorthonion and Himring. It is at this time that the brothers would flee. Traveling south and west by the marches of Doriath, they would finally come to Nargothrond, taking refuge with Galadriel's brother Finrod. Thus it is here, in Nargothrond, that Huan would dwell with his master for the following 10 years. During this time, it is clear that while Finrod is king, the 2 sons of Feanor held much sway over the people of the realm, which would come to bear in the story of Beren and Luthien. After the love of Beren and Luthien is revealed to her father, King Thingol of Doriath, he tasks the mortal man with stealing a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown in order to earn Luthien's hand. Beren goes to Finrod, calling upon a vow the elven king made to his father Barahir. Thus Finrod would declare to his people his intention to help Beren in his quest. Then Celegorm, Huan's master, arose amid the throng, and drawing his sword he cried, "Be he friend or foe, whether demon of Morgoth or elf or child of men, or any living thing in Arda, neither law nor love nor league of hell nor might of the Valar, nor any power of wizardry, shall defend him from the pursuing hate of Feanor's sons. If he take or find a Silmaril and keep it, for the Silmarils we alone claim, until the world ends." Many other words he spoke, as potent as were long before in Tirion the words of his father that first inflamed the Noldor to rebellion. In the end, Finrod would be left to assist Beren with just a handful of companions. As they would journey north, eventually coming to Tolan Galroth and being captured by Sauron, Luthien would escape her father's realm in an effort to aid her beloved. As chance would have it, Huan would discover Luthien traveling swiftly near the western eaves of Doriath. She is said to be flying like a shadow, surprised by the daylight under the trees. And here we learn a bit about how great a being Huan is, as we are told nothing could escape his senses of sight or smell, and that no enchantment could affect him. We also find out that he does not sleep, by night or day. Clearly, Huan is no common dog. Much like other creatures of Middle-earth, the true nature of Huan is a bit of a mystery. Indeed, Tolkien goes back and forth a good deal on the intelligent beasts of Middle-earth. While his early writings would indicate the great eagles were Maiar, the same level of being as Sauron and the wizards, he would seem to change his mind. In 1959, just a few years after The Return of the King was published, Tolkien wrote an essay where he talks of Huan and the eagles. While initially speculating on whether they could be Maiar, he concludes that while they are intelligent beings, they do not possess Feanor, or souls, but are simply creatures elevated by the Valar. However, on the very paper on which he wrote this essay, Tolkien wrote a note which says, "As the Valar would robe themselves like the children, many of the Maiar robe themselves like other lesser living things, as trees, flowers, beasts." And then in parentheses, he writes, Huan. Furthermore, in a text from 1970, among his last writings, he gives a footnote seeming to confirm the eagles were indeed Maiar. The most notable were those Maiar who took the form of the mighty speaking eagles that we hear of in the legends of the War of the Noldor against Melkor, and who remained in the west of Middle-earth until the fall of Sauron and the dominion of men, after which they are not heard of again. Whether a Maya or simply an incredible and intelligent beast, Huan would play a pivotal role in one of Tolkien's greatest First Age stories. He brings her to Celegorm. The son of Feanor, being enamored of her, tricks her into accompanying them to Nargothrond. Despite knowing she sought Beren, they held her as a prisoner, intending that as Beren and Finrod met their doom, they would force Thingol to give her hand in marriage to Celegorm himself, ensuring he and his brother would become mightiest of the Noldoran princes. But Huan the Hound was true of heart, and the love of Luthien had fallen upon him in the first hour of their meeting, and he grieved at her captivity. Therefore he came often to her chamber, and at night he lay before her door, for he felt that evil had come to Nargothrond. Luthien spoke often to Huan in her loneliness, telling of Beren, who was the friend of all birds and beasts that did not serve Morgoth. And Huan understood all that was said, for he comprehended the speech of all things with voice. Thus Huan devises a plan. He comes to Luthien at night, bringing her cloak which the brothers had taken. Here he speaks for the first time, giving her counsel. He leads her out via secret ways from Nargothrond, and humbling his own pride, he allows Luthien to ride upon him like a steed. They flee north with great speed, for Huan was swift and tireless. By the time they come to Sauron's fortress, Beren is the lone survivor of his company. Luthien stands upon the bridge, singing a song of power. Sauron sends one of his wolves, but Huan slays it silently. One by one, Sauron sends more and more of his wolves. Each in turn is taken by the throat and killed by the great Hound. Next, Sauron sends Draugluin, the lord and sire of the werewolves of Angband. His might was great, and the battle of Huan and Draugluin was long and fierce. Yet at length, Draugluin escaped, and fleeing back into the tower, he died before Sauron's feet. And as he died, he told his master, "Huan is there." Now Sauron knew well, as did all in that land, the fate that was decreed for the Hound of Valinor, and it came into his thought that he himself would accomplish it. Therefore he took upon himself the form of a werewolf, and made himself the mightiest that had yet walked the world, and he came forth to win the passage of the bridge. So terrible was Sauron in this wolf form that Huan would spring aside at his approach. Luthien would then use her cloak to cover Sauron's eyes. While this would not cause him to fall into sleep, he would stumble from a fleeting drowsiness. Then Huan sprang. There befell the battle of Huan and Wolf Sauron, and the howls and baying echoed in the hills, and the watchers on the walls of Ered Withrin across the valley heard it afar and were dismayed. But no wizardry nor spell, neither fang nor venom, nor devil's art nor beast's strength could overthrow Huan of Valinor. And he took his foe by the throat and pinned him down. Then Sauron shifted shape, from wolf to serpent, and from monster to his own accustomed form. But he could not elude the grip of Huan without forsaking his body utterly. Sauron would surrender the Isle to Luthien, and as Huan releases him, the Lieutenant of Morgoth would flee. Huan and Luthien would search for and rescue Beren in the dungeons of Tol Gauroth. While Beren and Luthien would be free for a time and walk in the woods, Huan, being faithful, would return to his master, yet it is said their love was less than before. Also returning to Nargothrond are many elven prisoners of Sauron's fortress, who would bring word of the fall of Finrod. This would backfire upon the sons of Feanor, who are threatened with death by the citizens of Nargothrond. Yet Orodreth, Finrod's nephew and heir, would not allow them to be slain. Instead, Celegorm and Curufin would flee. And while Curufin's son, Celebrimbor, would repudiate the deeds of his father, Huan would yet follow Celegorm in his exile. As chance would have it, Beren and Luthien came to the forest of Brethil, nearing the borders of Doriath. As they discussed their choice to continue the quest or to take up a life of wandering, the brothers approached with great speed. Curufin grabs Luthien, pulling her onto his saddle, but Beren would leap upon the speeding horse. Taking Curufin by the throat, he hurled him backward, and all three fall to the ground. As Beren throttles Curufin, Celegorm rides toward Beren, seeking to kill him with a spear. In this moment, Huan turns on his master once and for all. He springs upon Celegorm and causes his horse to swerve aside and stay away out of fear. Celegorm then cursed both hound and horse, but Huan was unmoved. As the brothers flee, Curufin in his malice shoots an arrow at Luthien, which Huan leaps and catches in his mouth. A second arrow pierces Beren, who dove in front of Luthien. While Luthien would eventually heal Beren, it is said Huan pursued his former master, and that the sons of Feanor fled in fear of the great Hound. After being healed, Beren would resolve to continue his quest for the Silmaril, leaving Luthien behind and in the care of Huan while she slept. However, Huan would once more consent to be her steed, for it is said that he loved both Beren and Luthien. By the magic of the great elf maiden, Huan would take the form of the slain wolf Draugluin, and Luthien the form of the vampire Thuringwethil. Thus they would run through Tar Nufuin, and all things fleeing before them, they would catch up to Beren. The mortal man says now he wishes that Thingol had slain him in Doriath, if it meant Luthien would not be brought under the shadow of Morgoth. Then for the second time, Huan spoke with words, and he counseled Beren, saying,
"From the shadow of death you can no longer save Luthien, for by her love she is now subject to it. You can turn from your fate and lead her into exile, seeking peace in vain while your life lasts. But if you will not deny your doom, then either Luthien, being forsaken, must assuredly die alone, or she must with you challenge the fate that lies before you. Hopeless, yet not certain. Further counsel I cannot give, nor may I go further on your road, but my heart forebodes that what you find at the gate I shall myself see. All else is dark to me, yet it may be that our three paths lead back to Doriath, and we may meet before the end."
Beren would then take on the form of Draugluin, and they would leave Huan behind on their journey. Through many perils, they would finally reach the gate of Angband. And it is said that when Morgoth heard the baying of Huan, the great Hound of War, whom long ago the Valar unleashed, Morgoth would seek to create one to rival him. Then Morgoth recalled the doom of Huan, and he chose one from among the whelps of the race of Draugluin, and he fed him with his own hand upon living flesh, and put his power upon him. Swiftly the wolf grew, until he could creep into no den, but lay huge and hungry before the feet of Morgoth. There the fire and anguish of hell entered into him, and he became filled with a devouring spirit, tormented, terrible, and strong. Carcharoth, the Red Maw, he is named in the tales of those days, and Anfauglir, the Jaws of Thirst. And Morgoth set him to lie unsleeping before the doors of Angband, lest Huan come. In a story told elsewhere, Beren and Luthien would succeed in stealing a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown, though it, along with Beren's hand, would be taken by the jaws of Carcharoth. The quest would have ended in disaster in that moment were it not for Huan. For while he had parted ways with Beren and Luthien, he worked still to aid them. He had bidden all things to watch and bring aid to them should it be needed, leading 3 great eagles to swoop in for the rescue. The eagles set them down at the borders of Doriath. Huan would come to them, and it is said that he and Luthien would together tend to Beren during his long road to recovery. Eventually, Beren and Luthien, and presumably Huan, would return to her father's halls, where Thingol, hearing of the tale and seeing Beren's missing hand, would relent, blessing this first union of elf and man. Later that very year, the great wolf Carcharoth would come closer and closer to the elven realm, for the Silmaril burned inside the belly of the foul creature. This searing pain causes the wolf to run wildly through Beleriand. Having broken through the protective girdle of Melian, he would draw closer to Menegroth itself. Thus Thingol would set out to hunt the beast with his greatest warriors, Beleg's strongbow, Mablung of the heavy hand, Beren son of Barahir, and Huan, the Hound of Valinor. In the morning they pass over the river Escalduin, and after turning east and north, they find Carcharoth in a dark valley. Carcharoth avoids Huan's initial attack, and lunges at Thingol. However, Beren jumps in front of the king with a spear. The wolf sweeps the spear aside and fells Beren, biting at his chest. In that moment, Huan leaped from the thicket upon the back of the wolf, and they fell together fighting bitterly. And no battle of wolf and hound has been like to it, for in the baying of Huan was heard the voice of the horns of Orome, and the wrath of the Valar. But in the howls of Carcharoth was the hate of Morgoth, and malice crueler than teeth of steel. And the rocks were rent by their clamor, and fell from on high and choked the falls of Escalduin. Huan in that hour slew Carcharoth, but there in the woven woods of Doriath, his own doom long spoken was fulfilled, and he was wounded mortally, and the venom of Morgoth entered into him. Then he came, and falling beside Beren, spoke for the 3rd time with words, and he bade Beren farewell before he died. Beren spoke not, but laid his hand upon the head of the hound, and so they parted. So passes Huan, the wolf-hound of Valinor, greatest of dogs to ever roam the world of Arda. He would show great loyalty to his master over the course of centuries. Yet when the time came, Huan would do what was right, rejecting the evil ways of Celegorm. And in their short time together, he would be so much more than a pet or a steed to Luthien and Beren. He would be a friend to these people whom he loved. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Next time on Nerd of the Rings.